great. Okay.
And thanks
right.
for reminding me, Nolan, because half the time I forget.
Well, we all
Yeah, well-
forget that.
Well, I'm done for the day. So bye, everybody.
Okay.
No. Yeah.
There was a chat. Let's see. Before we get started. Okay, Laura
Oh,
White.
Santa
Okay.
Fe.
Okay, I'm here. Okay, chat only for me. Well, hello, Laura. We'll introduce Laura, who is chat only right now. Well, let's get started and introduce ourselves. Okay, Janet is looking forward to applying. Okay, super. Okay, well, let's get started, and we'll just introduce ourselves, and then we'll get into today's program. Steve.
Okay, yeah, hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure if it's morning where some of you're at, maybe Santa Fe, it's still morning. My name's Steve Fenton and I work with Mike and Nolan on looking forward to seeing all of you, hopefully, next month at the All Grantee meeting. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit.
Yeah, I'm Mike Sedu, the facilitator today. I'm with also HMTRI. Nolan.
Nolan Curtis with HMTRI, and then in Aiken, South Carolina, and
Okay.
a retired contractor to the Fed. And so I've been working with these guys off and on for what, 25, 30 years now. So
Way too long.
yeah.
Gary.
Yes, I'm Gary Johnson. I'm working with the worker training program, through NIH. I've been here since December, working with Sharon Beard and Jim Remington and Kathy Allman. So glad to be here. This is my first meeting.
Those are good people you're working with.
Yep.
Sharon, I remember when Sharon came in she was an intern and is going to be temporary, and now she's running the whole place. So she's a good gal. So
Yep.
Casey.
Hi, my name is Casey. This is also my first time attending, and I'm with Groundwork RVA. So our executive director, Rob Jones, and Green Workforce Program Coordinator, Will McQuate, will also be part of the team that's working on securing Brownfields grant. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Rachel, how are you today?
Hi, we're doing good. We're preparing for our second cohort, which will be our OSHA 30 class next week. And we have overflow of people who want to join. So we're excited for this.
We when we get back into having special guests, we'd like to have Rachel on because she started off last year. She was like some of you. She was just starting off this whole adventure, and now she's got her second class and she got to turn people away. Fantastic. Iris.
Hi, my name is Iris Colom. I work at Paston Corporation in Puerto Rico.
Okay.
We are very excited because also we have started with our participants doing some outreach, and it's very good for us. We have around 25 participants right now. And also we have started with the HAZWOBER and the trainings, and it's really, really good for us.
Good.
Excuse me, Iris.
Yes.
I know that you and your organization and your people, your community, were very much affected by the hurricanes, and I'm just wondering how you all are doing in terms of recovery from that.
Oh, everything is going great. We have a lot of receiving a lot of incentive from the state. So the construction area and all this kind of flooding and everything in the rivers has been working. So we are pretty much better than years ago. So thanks God.
Okay, well, that's good to hear. So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Murray Harms. I'm sure I butchered your name. Oh, your audio is out there. Okay, click your audio.
Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Yes.
There we go.
Sorry about that. Every time I switch to Zoom, it changes. I'm Yori Harms, and I'm the Uranium Mine Reclamation Coordinator at New Mexico Environment Department. And I'm part of the Office of Strategic Initiatives, and I'm just here kind of exploring if the brownfields program is something we could take on. One part of my job is to create a workforce development program for environmental cleanup. So
Great.
I'm
Okay.
just
Well,
working on some things.
hopefully we'll be able to help you. So,
Well, and Mike, before we go on, I just tell Miori that Santa Fe Community College is on the call today and they are an active grantee. So which city are you in New Mexico?
I'm in Albuquerque and I would be
Oh.
doing a brownfields where the uranium sites are, so closer to Grants and Farmington.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the Janet Curley is the lead instructor of that program. I don't know if you've met her or not, but she's fantastic, very knowledgeable. So
Ed,
Yeah, I've heard her
I'm sorry.
name.
Ed Kelly.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ed Kelly. I am with Nye Communities Coalition here in Pahrump, Nevada.
Are they in follow-up?
As I said earlier, we're about 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas, heading towards Death Valley. Excuse me, we are in a pretty remote area and doing the brownfields trainings. I'm finishing up a cohort right now. Started with 22 individuals on March 13th that showed up for class. The second day I was down to 19, lost one after the first morning break, and just had some others that just wanted the HAZWOPER training. So they just took the HAZWOPER training, and now I'm completing with, I've had 10 or 11 in the final trainings. We're doing environmental technician training today with Beck Environmental. And then we'll finish up and hold a graduation on Friday. So kind of excited. I only had 6 people in my first cohort, spent all kinds of money on the grant on 6 individuals. And so this time was a better turnout and kind of excited, getting ready to plan for another one. And we'll do one more and hopefully get even more individuals that will stay throughout the entire training. But like I said, we are rural and it's hard to recruit. So,
Well, Ed, you've got a tough road to hoe. You share the same issues that Rachel does. Rural, sparse employer, sparse participants, but very, very important to the whole program. So keep up the good work. Gary Johnson. You could unmute if you'd like to. There you go. Oops, you had it. There you go.
You want me to reintroduce myself?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my bad here.
That's
I'm
a
trying
famous
to.
rap line.
You guys are moving around on my screen. Okay, let's go to Mac. He's our fallback. Hey, Mac.
Hi, how are you guys doing? Hello, everyone. My name is Mac Alabed. I am the senior manager of our workforce department here in at Southwest Economic Solutions here in Detroit, Michigan. We have currently an EPA, we're EPA grantee serving the CDL has Whopper and hazmat trainings here in Detroit.
Okay, Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy Shannon. I'm a Brownfields Project Officer with EPA Region 3.
Oh, great. Thanks. Thanks for coming, Nancy. Laura. Laura White. We'll see if you can unmute, and if not, we'll come back to you. Katie Cameron. Oh, hi, everyone. Okay, Grants Director, Laura White. Okay.
Hi
Welcome.
there. I'm Katie Cameron from Youth Build Louisville. We are a hopeful grantee. We'll be applying again this year.
Awesome. Very good. Well, I hope we can help you. Lois.
Hi, I'm Lois Ellis from Canton, Ohio. Still learning.
Good.
And thanks for the invite for the HMTRI in Alexandria.
Fantastic. David Canto.
Yes, hello, I'm David Cantu with the City of San Rosario, and I also work with Rio Grande Council of Governments. We're just trying to learn as much as we can about this opportunity.
Great. And Did I miss anyone?
Oh, Mike, but Laura's communication is not working, and
Okay.
she's the grants director for Santa Fe Community College.
Oh, great. Okay. For those of you, and we have some new people, I want to make sure that you're on the PLC list. So if you could send me your contact information, it's msenew@gmail.com. We could put it, we'll put it in the chat. MSENEW, Michael Senew, msenew@gmail.com. By signing up, you'll get a lot more than what we'll be able to talk about today. We'll have all the links. It'll have all the invites. It'll have a lot more supplemental information than we could cover in this time that we have together. So if you get on the list, we'll make sure you get invites to all of the PLCs and the all grantee meeting. And we'll be talking about that today. We just basically want to get you in on the loop. So sign up when you have a chance, and we'll make sure, again, I'll put the email in the chat so you'll have that, and just send it in. Everyone else, if you're signed up, you'll get notes and a recording, links to the recording at our toolbox, brownfields-toolbox.org. That'll be up in about a week, but by next Tuesday, you'll have the notes to this meeting, and we'll give you announcements to the next one, which we'll talk about in just a second. So with that, let me turn it over to Steve, and he'll go through some of the announcements that some of you may have heard, but are very important. Steve.
All right. Thanks, Mike, and good afternoon, morning again, everyone. First thing I'd like to start off with is the all grantee meeting, which is fast approaching in May, the 24th and 25th at the Hilton Alexandria Old Town in Alexandria, Virginia. And I noticed, looking at your names, there's a number of you that have recently registered and also gotten rooms. So appreciate that. And if you haven't, please consider doing so fairly soon, because we may have to cap this at some point in time, and you don't want to be left out. Some of the topics we're going to cover, just to give you a kind of a heads up, still working on fine tuning the agenda, but we'll probably be sending one out, even a rough draft one here fairly soon. But we're going to be covering grants management for federal regulations impacting brownfield program implementation, grantee partnership, employers advisory boards, social services, working with WIBs and trainer resources. We're also going to be looking at challenges and minefields for brownfield grantees, things like transportation, childcare, cultural/gender issues, and demographic disparities. You know, a lot of those things that impact programs. We're also going to cover the EJ tool, locating demographic and environmental information when establishing your local target service areas. We're also going to have a presentation from ACRES, the ACRES tool from the brownfield job training grantees. Their sessions are usually always well attended. We're also going to cover rural grantee issues and to have a panel of selected programs located in rural communities talk about some of those issues that they're facing. Also, tips and strategies for recruiting, screening, assessing populations, successful recruiting strategies for brownfield job training grantees, and also working with diverse populations, including returning citizens, temporary housing for homeless applicants, et cetera. A number of diverse populations. We're going to be talking about that as well. Plus, we're going to have networking lunches, briefings from breakout sessions, open forums, plenty of opportunities to meet and network. That's one of the values of this workshop. People always say is the networking opportunities they get. Not only will you have opportunities to meet and talk with your brownfield job training coordinators from EPA, but also folks from around the country. And one of the things that I know has gratified Mike and Nolan and I over the years is how much, the networking, happens, and people are so willing to share about, some of the challenges they found and some of the innovative solutions that they've had to overcome some of these hurdles. So it's really a great opportunity. haven't had a in-person grantee meeting for a few years, so we're really looking forward to this one. And registrations are really, picking up. So again, if you haven't registered yet, consider doing so. We also have a room block that we have until May 2nd. At that point, we have to release it. So seriously, if you're looking at attending, you might want to register fairly soon and grab a room while they're still available. And I'll put, when I get off, I'll put in the chat a link to the conference registration and information on the hotel in case you want to make a reservation. And they'll also be in the note, so you'll have those as well. Next thing I wanted to talk about was the Brownfield National Conference. Believe it or not, that's actually about 4 months away. And we usually have a number of folks attend from grantees that come. HMTRI will have a booth there, and so we will be exhibiting, and it will be August 8th through 11th, 2023 in Detroit, Michigan. They still haven't announced the host hotel yet, but information will be included in that Mike sends out from the PLC notes that you might want to take a look at. That's an excellent conference and an opportunity for you to network as well. And also, this is probably the last chance for nominations for the Phoenix Awards program. And it is the premier awards program for brownfields redevelopment. And it will be announced, award winners will be announced at the national conference in Detroit. And so you can nominate someone, you can even nominate yourself, but nominations close on April 17th. So that's the Phoenix Awards nominations. And again, if you keep in mind, we are going to be there. So if you can't be, but if you would like us to market any of your materials, you can always let us know, or send them to us, and we would be happy to market your program for you if you can't come. And if you can come, feel free to step by the booth because we'll be there. Okay, a couple of questions that have come up from participants. One is, as we finalize community assessments and select a target community, are we required to inform the target community of our intention to apply for a brownfield job training grant as part of the application process? And while that's not required, applicants are strongly encouraged to work with neighboring groups in the proposed target community. Start early by attending town hall meetings, neighborhood advisory council meetings, church functions, other things within your jurisdiction there. Start early. Be prepared to discuss your intentions to apply for a EPA job training grant, and let them know you would appreciate community support. Community-based organizations can help with the application development process, including they might be able to help provide sources for non-environmental training that's not covered by the grant. That's those wraparound services that you hear us referring to all the time. They also might be able to help with in-kind contributions, including potential training facilities, possibly equipment, and maybe community awareness and recruitment assistance as well. So, as well as they might have some insight related to the local social, demographic, and economic conditions that would be helpful for your grant. So, by all means, please stay in contact with them. Another question is, where can I find brownfield job training programs already funded by EPA who may be able to answer questions I have about the program? That's a very good question. And brownfield job training grantees have always showed a willingness to assist new grantees. Again, that's one of the things that Mike Nolan and I always, marvel at. It's like awesome the way they're willing to help. And a good place to start is contacting your regional coordinator who's familiar with some of the current grantees in your region. We also maintain a contact list of all grantees for use. Essentially for employers, it's called a certified employee finder, but you can go on there and get contact information for all of the grantees. I'll put that link in the chat too when I get off here, and it will also be included in the notes. And then lastly, just kind of a tentative schedule of the PLCs coming up. Today, we're going to be looking at needs assessment. Nolan and Mike are going to kind of go through some of the assessments, the labor market assessment, and community assessments that are important to do. We're going to cover that today. In our next session on April 26th, we're going to go over partnership development. And then on May 10th, at the following PLC, we'll go over student recruitment and assessment, give you some ideas there. And then we'll we'll have a break on April 24th. It'll be the all grantee meeting in Alexandria, Virginia. So there'll be no PLC at that time. The PLC after that on June 7th will cover curriculum development and student retention. And on the 21st of June, it'll be placement and tracking. And then finally on July 5th, we'll cover tips to consider before the application submission. So that's kind of the process of how we're going to go through this. This schedule will be laid out in the notes that Mike sends out, this week. So you'll have it. If you didn't jot those down, you'll be getting a copy of that list. So that's kind of the schedule. Again, just let me close by saying the Brownfield all grantee meeting, if you're interested in participating, you might want to think about registering and then securing a room for, sooner rather than later, because it's we're getting a lot of attention. There's a lot of people signing up. And that, like I said, at some point we may have to, cap the numbers. So get in while you can.
I would add, Steve, that it's everyone attending today is invited. If you're thinking of starting a program, you're invited. And also, the hotel for the 3 days are free. So you have to provide your own transportation and incidentals. But as far as the conference, it's free. As far as the hotel lodging at the Hilton in Alexandria, it's free. So if you're thinking of starting a program and you can get someone in your organization to take care of the transportation, it's a great opportunity, and all the instructions will be in the notes.
Mike, that's a good point. We're also going to have 2 continental breakfasts and 2 working lunches included also as well. And as Mike said, you don't have to be a current grantee to attend. In fact, we've had a number of people who are considering applying, who have been attending these PLCs, who have signed up. So it's awesome. It's going to be a really good opportunity, for you again to like network with folks and find out more information. It's really a family, this group. You'll find out. I mean, we've got people that we've been working with for 25 years, and to see them turn around and to help these new grantees that come along is just really, it's really inspiring. So okay, with that, I'm going to turn it over to my esteemed colleague Nolan Curtis, who is going to talk about establishing community needs. Nolan?
Okay. Good afternoon and welcome and thank you. I'm going to give a broad overview brief for community and labor market assessments, and then Mike will follow up with more detail on each. But as we go through this process of grant cycle, there are a few things that were what we call the long poles in the tent. And so things you need to get started on right away or establishing if you are thinking about having a grant, because these just take more time than some of the other things, and you'll need to do them in order to be able to actually fill out the application correctly. So in terms of establishing community need, there's a community and labor market assessments, and these highly impact the success or failure of a brownfields job training program. In the end, the effectiveness, reputation, and credibility of a training program is determined by student retention and graduate placement. So you have to look to what's the outcome that we're trying for. So this isn't a level of effort grade. It's really based on outcomes. Likewise, a lack of community support eventually strangles recruitment efforts, resulting in apathetic participants neither motivated nor committed to establishing an environmental career. Both labor market and community assessments need to begin early, continue throughout the program development, and should be revisited throughout the life of the program. Responsibility for these assessments should be assigned early to individuals interested in working with governmental organizations, potential employers, and with the community. So a few kind of points. One, begin the community and labor market assessments early with as large a net as possible. So again, this is a process, and you just, begin when you can, but it takes a while to get there. Visit and get to know the neighborhoods under consideration. So we like to say walk the talk and walk the block. You have to get out of the office, you have to be in the community, you have to be in the neighborhoods to really understand what's going on there and to meet with the people who are there. Use search engines, internet resources, and surveys for initial background information. So one of the amazing things now is how much information is available on the internet. And so you need to become more savvy, facile, and just willing to research a lot of that information, but it's surprising how much information you can get. Don't restrict the searches to environmental related industries. So there's a number of efforts going on and have been going on across the country to really identify what are environmental jobs, and essentially a job by another name. So in one community, it might be a yard waste coordinator. In another community, it might be landscape pickup. In another community, it's something else. And so there's a broad range of these jobs, and many are associated with companies that aren't necessarily environmental companies, but they reach out and over environmental issues. And so they do have job opportunities there. Involve governmental and municipal agencies in community and labor market assessments. Again, they have a wealth of knowledge and background and experience and data on their local communities and on the local job situation. Drill down to communicate with community leaders and employers exhibiting interest in a local BJT program. So one of the bottom lines to all of this is going to be about establishing relationships. And it is a relationship business. And so it's not enough to know that they're interested in brownfields. It's important to know why they're interested. So you need to really get at why they would be interested, especially in your target population, so you can understand how to better and more effectively reach them. Engage supporters and employers to become part of your brownfield job training. So these are also individuals and organizations that can really assist in terms of being board members or maybe supplying in-kind services or just good advice, and so, again, engage them and use them because you are a part of the help for that community. Always ask government officials, supporters, and potential employers for help in identifying additional program supporters. So a rule of thumb that some organizations use is never come away from an interview or a meeting with less than 3 leads. So, ask them, who else might I talk to? Who else, might be interested in this? Who can you recommend? And you'd be surprised. 2 things happen. 1, it increases leads and recommendations that you might never have thought of. And 2, at some point it circles back and you get a really good idea of who the movers and shakers are, because some of the same names and same organizations and people just keep coming up. And so that these are the go-to people in the community. And then document the meetings and supporters for possible inclusion in the grant application. So the idea of who did you talk to, what meetings did you attend, where did you give presentations, these are all going to be important in the overall application, and Mike will talk more to that. So the community needs is outlined in the request for application guidelines. When they're issued, the evaluation criteria begin with a detailed statistical description of the proposed target community. So it's not enough to just kind of go out and look at it and say, well, it looks this way or that way. You need the data. Information requested includes demographic information that supports how the community was selected as a brownfield job training target area. Example tables are provided in the guidelines with resources for gathering demographic data. The narrative accompanying the table demonstrates how the proposed program will benefit disadvantaged communities as identified in the Biden administration's Justice 40 initiative, the EPA Environmental Justice Initiative, and how demographic indicators relate to current challenges in the target community, including the following. So environmental issues, social and public health concerns, economic issues, disproportional impacts from environmental harm or risk, potential environmental justice concerns, disproportionate siting of polluting facilities, and disproportionate number of brownfield sites. So rather than discuss responding specifically to the EPA grant application, today's discussion addresses best practices in selecting target communities that will benefit most from a brownfields job training program. After completing a comprehensive labor market and community assessment, responding to the RFA will become pretty much a grant writing exercise using information and background collected as part of the program development process. So again, all of these will be included in the notes and that will be available next week. So if you didn't copy all the bullet points while my lips were flapping, that's okay. We'll get all the data to you. So again, thank you, and I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thanks, Nolan. Nolan gave a good summary of what EPA is looking for in the RFA. For those of you who are new or have not submitted an application in the past, I'll give you a little overview, which Nolan touched on, and also included in the notes last year's RFA. These grants are reoccurring every year. They've been recently switched to 500,000 for 5 years. They're very specific of the information they want. And what happens is once you qualify your organization to move forward with the grant application, they start evaluating you. We call it the narrative, or we call it evaluation criteria or ranking criteria. And you have to have response to 7 or 8 very specific questions and have data to support your grant. This grant is a little different than many grants in that you have to have your program very well laid out. In other words, before you even apply, they want you to basically have a test run virtually of how you're going to do it, who are your partners, what's your curriculum. So you have to have your entire program laid out. And this is the problem with this particular grant, in that when it comes out sometime in June, and no one has access to it except EPA people until it's released by grants.gov, that'll be sometime in the June timeframe. You only have 60 days to respond, and that's to write this entire grant. Now, you could write the grant in 60 days, but to gather all the information that we're going to be talking about is pretty close to impossible. To develop your partnerships and that. Definitely people who have had grants for several cycles have an advantage. They've established their partners, but EPA does a good job in leveling the the playing field. So if you're a new grant applicant, EPA is going to understand that, and they realize you may not have the bench that someone's been doing it for 20 years has. You haven't had the time to develop your relationship, your partnerships, your curriculum, your trainers. So don't be discouraged when you see this daunting grant application and say, how am I going to do it? Now, as I said, we will put in the notes the links to the last year's RFA, frequently asked questions, and EPA has indicated to us it's not going to change too much. There may be the way they evaluated, they assign points to each of the evaluation criteria, and they try to do it as objectively as they can. They sum them up and they give you a total score, and then they have other considerations, how new you were, your geographical location, if there's special situations in your target community, and then they'll come up with a subjective, objective ranking of the proposals, and they'll take all the money they have and they'll give it out. The 500,000 essentially per grantee. The last RFA was about 29 grantees, so they'll just run them until they run out of money and wait for the next year. So my message to you is, one, apply. And we tell people, these are for new people. Those of you who have been PLC before, you probably heard this. Always apply, even though you think this is daunting, or even though you think you might not have the depth of the competition you're working against. Apply, because it gets you into the loop, and you get to talk to not only people like us, but you get to go to grantee meetings. You get to talk to regional coordinators who will give you a run through, a debriefing on your grant, will help you along on what you could do to improve your grant. So we have many applicants who apply the first year and don't make it. Some apply the second year and don't make it. And then bingo, they've got their grant together. It took them a little while. They've got their partnerships together, and they're in it. And once you're in it, you join the other ranks of people who are in it. You can continue to expand your program. So we've had grantees who have been in one cycle. We've had grantees who have been in for 20 cycles, 20 years. So EPA tries to be as fair, but they want to make sure that the people they give money to are going to have a successful program. That's why they're going to ask all these questions. Today, we're going to refine a little bit what Nolan has said. He gave you an overview of the RFA that's going to be coming out. I want to talk about the first one today, and subsequent PLCs. We'll talk about other ranking criteria. For example, the next big one will be partnerships, which we'll talk about next time. But when we talk about community need is probably the most important aspect of this, because it affects all of the other criteria. You've got to determine the basis of this program boils down to two simple questions. Is the preparer training that you're going to be giving, is it going to be useful to local employers? In other words, your reason for being, is there a reason for you doing this program in the first place? If there's not, why do it? The second big question has to do with the participants. Will your participants be able to find sustainable employment after graduation? So what we have here is two basic questions. One has to do with the labor market assessment. Is there a demand for your students? And the second one is community assessment. Are you going to be doing the right thing for people who are going to be going through your training program? Are they going to be getting jobs? So let's drill down to labor market assessment first. Now in the RFA, they talk about, they call it community need, and they assign points to community assessment and then labor market assessment. I've reversed the order because I think labor market assessment really is the most important. If you don't have a labor market, you might as well go home. So the question is, how do we do a labor market assessment? And Nolan he talked about statistics that they want. They do, EPA will ask for statistics that you're easy to get, because they'll even give you the places where you could get the statistics. And these are simple things like the demographics, the mean income, the unemployment compared to the state. These are statistics that the grant writer or whoever writes the grant can do in the last several weeks of the grant writing. But the more involved part of this is determining your labor market. And we like to say what you need to do is do a very comprehensive upfront investment in determining what your market is. And the reason is it's going to help you in other aspects of writing this grant and in implementing the grant. When it's time to place these students, if you've done a proper labor market assessment, you will have a contact file of who to contact when it's time to place the students. Now, we're going to be writing this grant and applying in June of this year. June of next year, you're going to be starting to think about, where am I going to place these students? Who am I going to be working with? Who's going to be supporting my program? All of these questions are asked, they're answered through labor market assessment. And how do we do this? It's really a combination of things. You want to go from general specific. You're going to go to your WIB, your Workforce Investment Board, and your one-stops, and you're going to talk to them about, are there environmental jobs? Are there people who are looking for people with skills that you may be training. And what we really want to talk about is you're not graduating environmentalists so much as or environmental remediation people. You're really generating people who are vetted and trained and certified. They've gone through a discipline program. They're ready for work, and they've got certificates that may be worth $5,000 or $6,000 to an employer that they could, once they graduate, they could go off running to this employer. Now, the people that will be hiring them aren't, as Nolan said, they're not necessarily consulting remediation cleanup firms. They're all over the map. They might be manpower firms. There are manpower firms who are involved in cleanup. They may be apprenticeship programs, pre-apprenticeship programs with trade unions, municipal agencies and government agencies. These are just some of the people that are hiring our grantees. Waterworks, utilities, all of the municipal governmental organizations, the railroad may be hiring material handling people. We have programs that have trained what we call flaggers. What's a flagger? Flagger is someone who's directing traffic. Well, no, not everyone can direct traffic, because if you're directing traffic on a hazardous waste site, you have to have HAZWOPER. You need to have 1910-120, which is called HAZWOPER. You cannot go on a hazardous materials site unless you've got the certificate. Now, you, as a Brownfields training program, are going to be giving them that certificate. That certificate may be worth $1,000 to that person, and it restricts the people who could go on the site. We have had programs where, in community colleges, where it's an upside down pyramid, where PhDs have had to go down to the community college to get their HAZWOPER certificate because they could not go on the site. They knew all about the high technical end of the remediation, but they couldn't go on the site because they have not got the certifications. You're going to be providing those certifications. In fact, it's a requirement of this program that every grantee go through HAZWOPER. So what I'm indicating is, when you do this labor market assessment, don't go to the Department of Labor standard occupational descriptions, because it will lead you down a very bad path. It's too generic and it doesn't cover everything. You really need to look at industries and employers who would hire people who may need the certifications that you're going to be providing your students. And you can look and see, we have guest speakers on a pretty regular basis and indicate what they're training to. Usually HAZWOPER, confined space, lead, asbestos. They may be doing a number of others depending on the local environmental situation or economic situation. So again, fan down to that. Now, you question, how do I do that? And a good place to start are places like the mayor's office, where find out who in the purchasing department who's doing the remediation in your community, who's doing the cleanup, who are doing things that your workers, when they graduate, could do for them. That's an excellent place. Of course, you want to talk to the WIB and see what they say about industries in their area, scrap yards, recycling facilities. There might be hospitals, and that may lead you down a path where you'll be doing more in the biohazard area. We've had grantees who have trained people who have worked in biohazards during the COVID. Actually, one of our grantees they were decontaminating buses. They were certified. They were able to go in and work for the city to decontaminate buses during COVID. So there, as I said, it's a broad spectrum of where the labor market is. And what you want to do is establish that there is one, and you want to find out who you would contact. And as Nolan said, you want to basically develop a contact file, find out, get your Rolodex going, find out who may be hiring your people, what their name is, who they're with, if they're interested. And of course, once you find someone who says, oh, I'm interested, you've got some people that I think I could use. Now you want to go to the next level and you want to say, would you be interested in getting involved in our program? We're just applying for the grant now, but if we get it a year from now, we're going to be generating some grantees. And they say, yeah, we'd like to participate. And then you go to the next level. Well, is by any way, could you support us in any way? Or could you write a letter? Would you be willing to help us write the grant? And then you want to move them towards, as Nolan said, move them towards the advisory board. So our best grantees have a handful of go-to people who are hiring multiple graduates. And it isn't that you're training them and passing them off to the WIB to place. It's you're training them and they're going right to the employer, and the employer is coming to your graduations. Sometimes they're even teaching courses so they could get a look at your student body, so they could get the cream of the crop right off the bat. So you want to develop that personal relationship, and that's what we call a real labor market assessment, the one-for-one. Anyone could get the statistics, and you could get the statistics when you write the grant, but definitely drill down whether you need to talk to the mayor's office, Office of Economic Development or Purchasing, whether the WIB could provide you with some industries and names, whether you go to Chamber of Commerce, who may have some names that they could provide you with who might work in this area. Again, very, very direct contact. And as Nolan said, always, whenever you have these meetings, when you have them, you could send out surveys, but the surveys aren't going to be, even on the grant application, they will not even come close to your personal direct contact. And when you develop your grant proposal and they ask for what's your strategy for labor market assessment, you don't want to put down surveys. You could put down surveys, but you want to say, no, we went directly to these employers that would hire the credentials that our students will have when they graduate. And we're going to be using these labor market assessments in developing our curriculum, which we'll talk about later, in developing our placement strategy when we start graduating students. So you're beginning to see how this labor market assessment kind of flows through the entire grant. It may influence your curriculum. You may come across someone. We had a tank manufacturer, this was in California, and they came along and said, oh, by the way, we'll hire all of your students if they have this particular curriculum. And of course, our grantee said, okay, we could include that, confined space. We could do these hazardous materials, confined space, lead paint. This works for you, it works for us. This is not uncommon. In Detroit, for example, when we had a grantee who was working very closely with the city there, it turned out that they were able to get into the mayor's office, and the mayor had a meeting with local contractors or remediation contractors. And again, the issue came up. Well, if you have this particular curriculum and these certifications, we will certainly look at your grantees. So this is the type of thing, and you could begin to see how this takes time to generate this. It's going to take more than 60 days, obviously. So you want to start that like now and start ferreting out your labor market assessment, start to figure out what it's going to be like. Now, when we do a labor market assessment, it could be larger than a target community. That second thing is what we talk about community assessment. So we divide this community need into labor market assessment to see if there's a need, community assessment to see what community we want to concentrate our training in. Now, when we talk about target communities, and that word's used a lot, this is a target community is basically where you're going to focus your training in this community. It doesn't mean that people can't come from other communities and get your training, but it does mean that you're going to kind of focus your training to suit this community. And EPA wants to know, what is that community and what is it like? And of course, this is part of an EJ effort, environmental justice effort, and they would like to see that this community is impacted by economic disincentives, health disparities, environmental contamination. They would like to know what is your primary area. Now, when you talk about community assessment and what communities I'm going to train in, they give you wide latitude. It could be a city, it could be a county, it could be a rural community, as Rachel's community. It could be a census tract. It could be very small. It could be a redevelopment zone or a watershed. But you could define whatever community you want. It needs to be an environmental justice community. Now, what is the environmental justice community? And that's a very interesting question, because we see a lot of money in this administration going towards environmental justice. Some of you may have heard about Justice 40, where President Biden said, if we're going to do climate and environment, 40% of those funds are going to go to environmental justice communities. EPA has been working on this for years, defining what is an environmental justice community, and they have developed what we call EJ Screen. I'll talk about that shortly. But what you want to do is you want to try to find out what kind of community am I going to train in primarily. Now, when you're thinking of doing this, you obviously don't want to put it in a very high-end community, or you may want to put it in a community where your students are going to be get to that community easily. It would be nice if you trained in that community. For example, if you were trading if your headquarters were in the eastern suburbs and you were going to train in the western or southern part of town, you may want to think about that and say, oh, okay, we're gonna train. The really need here is in the southwestern part of the city, and we're going to look at these census tracts, and we're going to find whether it's a community center or some sort of partner that will donate their facilities. We're going to do the training in the community. So this becomes one great big jigsaw puzzle. You want to find a community where you could train, ideally, so they don't have to take 3 buses to get to training. You want to find a community that really appreciates you coming to their community. You've got to find a community that has a definite need. A good place to look when you're looking at this 30,000 foot general view at this point in time is look and see where the brownfields are. In fact, go to the mayor's office and talk to find out, or to the brownfields tab, which we refer to often. Every state has have brownfields. Find out where the brownfields are. Brownfields are usually in or adjacent to EJ communities. These are areas that have economic distress and environmental distress. So it might be a good place to start. Find out. You want to also find out where other nonprofits are working. For example, if there are a lot of nonprofits on the west side of your city, why are you going to the east side of the city? Why don't you look and see why are those nonprofits on the west side? And that also provides you with some other incentives. They could provide you with a lot of wraparound services. For example, whether it's a Salvation Army or a Goodwill, or it may be a social services agency, wow, you might be able to locate right next to them or right near them. And they're already serving the community, and they're there for a reason. Join the fray. You may even want to partner with them in different ways. But the fact is, you want to find out where other people are working in these disadvantaged areas. So get a general lay of the land of the area you're going to be working in. Find out where the activity is. Find out where the nonprofits are. Find out where the students are. And of course, the aspects of this, as we said earlier, is you've got to have a motivated student population. So once you find out the west side of this city has a lot of nonprofits, a lot of social service organizations. There are brownfields nearby. You need to actually go into that community and start talking to church leaders, community organizers, and suggest, we're thinking of establishing a job training program here for environmental remediation. What do you think are the attitudes of the people that are living here? Would they like to develop a career in environmental remediation? Or do they look not kindly at environmental remediation people? Are they motivated? Are they close knit? What kind of social organizations or gangs exist? Is there a gang issue? Now, when there is, many of our grantees get around that. You leave your colors at the door, but you want to go into that knowing, before you choose your target community, where am I working and what kind of community I'm in? And again, as I said with the labor market assessment, the community assessment is really great, because once you do your community assessment properly, it'll flow through everything else. You'll be able, when you get into recruitment and you start recruiting students to enter your program, you can go to the church leaders that you've already talked to. You talked to them when you were developing your grant, and you could say, we got the grant and we want you to be on our advisory board, and we need help with this community. And could we make an announcement to the community that we're going to be starting this program, and we'd like to generate some community support, and this is what we're thinking of doing. And once you go through this program, you're going to have certifications worth $5,000 or $6,000 to employers. And we've already done a labor market assessment, and we know there's jobs, and we've got people lined up once they get through training. So again, we've done all of this before we've even written our grant. And you're gonna ask me, you want me to do all this work and I don't even have the grant yet. And this is the way this grant works. Other grants, the federal government gives you a pot of money and you go do the work, or you develop the planning grant. This is not a planning grant. You have to have it laid out, and they want to know what you're going to do before they give you the money. So you have to do all of these things ahead of time. Now, the other question you're going to ask me is, you're asking me to have people make commitments and I don't even have the money yet, but that's okay. And what you're going to say to these people is, we are writing a grant and we think we have a good chance at it. If we could get partners on board, if we could get the community on board, we're not sure that we're going to get the grant, but we need your help. And if we don't get it this year, we can always apply next year. And there's a very good chance we're going to get it this year. So it's a conditional promise that you want to get them to help you. And this is going to flow through the whole grant process, where you're going to say, we got to get our ducks lined up. We need your help. Will you help us? And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, sure, I'll help you. I want to get in on the bottom floor of this project. So that's the way to go with that. So that's again, you're beginning probably to see why this takes so much time to do this. Once you do your labor market and your community assessments, EPA's got lots of models. They've got 4 models that you could use to get all the demographic information, get all the data you need if you want. Later we'll talk about, you want to provide EPA with some numbers. They have, the big one is EJ Screen, and EJ Screen is a mapping tool. In fact, at our all grantee meeting, we're going to have someone from EJ Screen talk about how to use the screen. And in fact, in the notes, there'll be a link to EJ Screen, and you can go up on it, and it shows you how to zero in on your community. And it provides you all kinds of information on demographics. If you need to get the census tract, it gives you that. Gives you all sorts of information, the types of pollution they have in that area. It's been in the works at EPA for many years and been pretty well refined. So the big model that you could use once you start honing in on a community is going to EJ Screen. And when you read the notes, you'll be able to go onto it. and play around with it. And this is a good time to do that. So you'll be familiar with it. There's another very good mapping tool that EPA has called Cleanups in My Community. That's very similar to EJ Screen. They're both done about the same time. Cleanups in My Community might even be a little older. It talks about locations of hazardous waste sites, where they're located, provides grant information if they have a brownfields cleanup grant. It talks about the pollution sources in that area. So that's another thing that you may want to go into when you start talking about labor market assessment, or where you may want to locate your community, your target community. And there's some other ones. There's P2EJ Facility Mapper and CGIS. You're going to hear about CGIS. CGIS is the climate and economic justice screening tool. It's very important for agencies in the federal government. When President Biden said we're going to have a Justice 40 movement, and 40% of the money in certain agencies is going to go towards environmental justice communities, the first question everyone asks is, well, what are those communities? Who qualifies for this help? And of course, Office of CEQ, part of the executive branch, had to come up with a model. So they've been developing a model that they call CGIS. It's not for purpose of the writing of this grant. You'll hear about it, and I just wanted to mention it, but for the purpose of this grant, EJ Screen and Cleanups in My Community will give you all of the information you would need when you start writing this grant in terms of the community you're going to be working in, the pollution source that are nearby, potential brownfield sites and the like. So as I said, all these things will be in the notes, and we'll be talking about these things also maybe in more detail at the all grantee meeting in May. So to sum up what we're talking about today, when we talk about community need, which is probably the most important part of this entire project, you got to establish the need. You got to establish the community you're going to work in. And right now is the time to start thinking, where do we want to put this program? And once you think you've got an idea of where you want to start drilling down. Are there brownfields? Are there brownfields cleanups? Are there nonprofit organizations in this community? What's out there? Then you want to also go to employers, and you want to see, okay, go to the Workforce Investment Board, go to the mayor's office, find out if there's job opportunities, not for an environmental remediation person, for someone with these certain certificates, HAZWOPER, to work on hazardous materials sites, confined space, people who need OSHA certifications, that you may be teaching certain OSHA courses that others might not be teaching, because they might say, well, we get people in here all the time. They're looking for someone with an OSHA certification in confined space or in lead removal or paint. We've got a big demand for people in lead paint removal in your particular area if you're in an older town. So that's right now, we're at this phase, and we're in the early stages of this where we're kind of circling the wagons. We're going to start drilling down here, going from general to more specific, and we're going to keep in mind in doing this labor market assessment and community assessment kind of both at the same time. So you probably have gotten the feel that, oh my gosh, this is going to take a while, but we got plenty of time. We don't have 60 days. We've got some months ahead of us. So, and it's not going to change. The grants are going to be, the grant applications are going to be due, come out in June, be out sometime in June, probably due in August. So now is the time to start lining up, and there will be a lot of grants, and a lot of people who won't be as prepared as you will be. So now's the time to get started on it. So does anyone have any questions on all this? Other than, oh my gosh, what am I getting myself into? You know, this is a very rewarding project. Once you get into job training, you love it. We have, as I said, we've got grantees who have been in this for 20 years. The other thing is this is a stepping stone into other grants. We find that they may start off with this grant, and what's nice about this grant, it's a great starter grant. A small organization could get it. Once they get it, they get some state money, they get some other grants. You could ask Janet Curley, started off with a small grant, got a bigger grant, got an NIHS grant, maybe working with the college, and they get bigger and bigger. So success comes to those who can perform and can do a good job. So any comments? Anyone would like to talk about their experiences in doing these assessments at all? No. Okay. Well, it is a daunting project, and but I know you're up for it and you can do it. So.
Yeah, I just want to add in, it is a relationship building process on all fronts. I mean, there is a certain, gathering of data and search for information and all that, but at the end of the day, it's really about relationships, and they take a while to establish. They certainly take time to develop and to bear fruit. So, it's one of those things that you really can't start too soon in terms of that outreach and that relationship building with all of these different organizations and entities. And you never quite know where suddenly, the energy or the fruit or, whatever it is comes from. And sometimes it's places or agencies or organizations or companies that you least expect it. But always listen to them so that you understand their needs, their concerns, and sometimes even just how they want to help. And so, but again, we wish everyone well and all the best doing that.
This grant used to be a $200,000 grant. It went up to $500,000. So it's expanding. The money comes from the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which most of you are familiar with. This is a really big pot of money that goes through 26. There's all indications that these grants are going to continue at a fairly high level. Now, we're not talking about hundreds. We're talking about 20 or 30 grants, but we don't, because as you see, it's very specific. It's a very specific area. Your odds of getting a grant are pretty good because it's a daunting application. And if you do it, there's a very good chance you can get the money. So it's one of those things it's worth going whole hog into and writing the best application you can. I think that's the key here. It's not like we've got an agency like Department of Labor where we got $5 billion and we're gonna throw this money out and everybody and their brother is going to apply for that. They may have, because it's 500,000, they'll get some applicants, but they'll screen them really fast in the first part of this grant application. And they'll know who's serious about it, who's not. And they do a cutoff. They'll do a quick screen right off the bat. We call it the narrative page, where they find out how serious you are, and they notify those who aren't serious in 15 days that they didn't make it to the evaluation. Once you get in the evaluation, it's very clear who has done their homework and who hasn't. So again, start building your team. This is the time to do it. Steve, any questions or comments, or anyone have any comments they'd like to, or questions about this?
I don't see anything in the chat, Mike.
Okay. Well, I encourage everyone to tune in next week. Next 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about partnerships, which is second most important thing. Once you've chosen your labor market and you verified, oh yeah, there are jobs here. I can place people with 1910 120, which is HAZWOPER. I can, there's a need, and I've got communities I know I could train in. I think there's some nice communities that there are motivated people. There's a lot of church organizations there. There's social services, wraparound services that I could get. So the next question will be, okay, let's start lining up your partners. Who's going to provide wraparound services? And we'll talk about that next time. Well, thanks everybody. And we'll be talking to you soon. And for those of you who are not on the PLC list, just send your contact information to me, msenyu. It's in the chat room. msenyu@gmail.com. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Casey. Take care, Iris.
Here, Iris. Okay.
Alrighty.
We will. Steve, you're going to send me some letters, or are we going to wait on those letters?
Let's see. I think
You're
I'm gonna
sending to the 26th.
to the 26th. Actually, 25 now.
Oh,
because
good.
we had CDC of Pampa sign up as we were speaking.
Good.
So it'll be 25. Yeah, I'll send them out to the 25. But I'm going to clean up the 3 letters that you guys tweaked.
Okay.
So we all have a clean copy of
Okay.
that. And then I'll send it out to the 26th. And then I thought, well, maybe what we can do is the facilitator's letter, maybe that can wait till next week, along with the panel folks that we're going to contact. But
The testimonial panels, or which ones?
well, no, the workforce,
Oh,
the panels, because we're going to have to identify. And you know what? Ed here from Pahrump, Nevada, a rural grantee, he's
Right.
going to be at the meeting. We might snag him for the rural panel. He
You
would be good.
could be excellent. Yeah.
Yeah. So I made a mental note of that. But
Good.
so I thought we could contact those panel people maybe next week.
Okay.
And if when I send the letter around, if you want to contact those 2 testimonial people you have,
Yeah.
whenever you want to, that's fine.
I was
And
hoping
I'll-
Paul would be on the meeting, but not. So
Yeah, and I'm waiting for Abby to respond back, and I'm kind of surprised I haven't heard yet, or that she wasn't here at the meeting today, but
Right.
I'll probably hear from her maybe tomorrow. So
Okay.
that's what
good.
I'll do, and I'll keep you guys up to speed with registrations and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
On another note, I sent Eric and copied you and Josh on Connect 41.
Oh, great.
And so I remember that document. I mean, it's like I was going through, I did this, but for the life of me, I cannot find any of these send, receipt, whatever. So it's fine.
Okay.
I dug through all of my email. If I had gotten it, I would have forwarded on to you, Nolan. So yeah, it must have vanished.
But it's the weirdest thing, because when I was looking, because I think I was out of town when I did it. I mean, I think, and that might have been part of the problem, was it went into one of my little ghost files or something. But when I was going through it, I did this. I mean, I remember the little asterisk at the end of one of the long lists about which programs got grants and didn't. And I go, okay, this is, and so anyway, it's there, and I think I labeled it as March, or not. I'm sorry, January. So it's labeled as 41 January 2023. So
Okay.
and
Awesome.
but that's done.
Okay.
So all right. Well, good.
I got some
good meeting.
changes. I got a few changes on this, and I'll
Forward it
try to
to
send
me.
it. I'll support to both of you, and then
Yeah,
we'll go
okay.
from there. Okay.
And I'll get it
Yeah.
off to Nolan pretty quickly, because I'll
Okay.
be able to do it. The only
Okay.
big hiccup for me is going to be Friday,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
I might be able to get to it beforehand,
Okay.
depending on when I get it.
Sounds good.
All right,
Okay.
all right,
See you
guys, good
guys.
job.
And I'll
Okay.
try to think of some great action shots
There you go.
of people doing assessments.
Okay.
Awesome.
I have no idea what that's going to look like.
Okay.
All right.
See y'all.
Katie and Gary, see you later.
See you later.
Yeah.